Imagine the void between galaxies, not as empty space, but as a graveyard, a place where the light of stars dies, where ancient civilizations left behind ruins made of concepts rather than stone, and where something predatory waits, something so old that even the Tyranids, the greatest consumers in the known universe, refuse to face it. This is the story of a shadow that hunts shadows. A predator so absolute that the hive mind itself, a consciousness spanning entire galaxies, may have once turned and ran. We have always asked the question, why did the Tyranids come to the Milky Way? Most theories say they fled something, but what if the truth is far worse? What if they didn't flee? What if they were pushed, driven, shepherded, herded like prey into our galaxy because something in the darkness beyond extragalactic space wanted them gone? And more terrifying still, what if that something is following them? The idea sounds absurd at first. After all, the Tyranids are the apex predators of Warhammer 40k. They devour star systems, extinguish civilizations, and adapt to anything. They treat Necrons, Eldar, humans, orcs, everyone, as simple biomass. But across the lore, there are mysterious patterns, fragments, whispers, old legends, anomalous readings, and the ruins of species older than the old ones. And when you line them up, a terrifying picture begins to form. Let's begin with the Zoats. Most people remember them as the weird centaur lizard creatures from ancient editions. They're presented as Tyranid emissaries, diplomats in a swarm that should have no need for diplomacy. But the old lore contains a disturbing detail. The Zoats were not created by the Tyranids. They were conquered by them, brought in, absorbed. The Zoats fled into the Milky Way before the main Tyranid hive fleets arrived. They were running from the hive mind, yes, but some accounts mention something darker, something that had already annihilated their original region of space long before the Tyranids reached them. They weren't just fleeing the Tyranids, they were fleeing the destruction following behind them. Something so violent, so total, that even their conquerors, the Tyranids, behaved like prey rather than predators. Now look at the halo stars, that cursed region on the edge of the galaxy, where explorers vanish, ships fail, and physics itself becomes unreliable. The Imperium calls it a zone of eldritch interference, a place where something watches. Many of the black stone artifacts tied to the Old Ones and Necrons originate there. Xenos ruinology hints that the halo stars were a last stand, a wall, a barrier against an enemy not native to this galaxy. If the Old Ones feared this enemy, the same beings who engineered the Eldar, Orcs, Krork, Jokairo, and countless other species as weapons, then that enemy could not have been anything less than apocalyptic. Their war with the Necrons almost annihilated reality. But there's a strange implication in multiple texts. The Old Ones fought more than just the Necrons. They fought something from outside the galactic structure, something the Eldar myths refuse to name, something the Necrons do not record. What if that other enemy was the same force driving the Tyranids forward? Now let's think about the Tyranids themselves. Their biology is perfect for invasion, but strangely inefficient for retreat. They consume forward endlessly, with no indication of fallback behaviors. Their entire evolutionary design screams expansion, consumption, advance, but nothing suggests where they came from or why. And the most disturbing part? They appear to have unified completely into the hive mind only after leaving their home galaxy. That implies a trauma event, a great convergence, something that forced scattered Tyranid strains to merge, forming a singular survival instinct. The hive mind isn't just a collective intelligence, It might be a collective fear response. But what could terrify a species like the Tyranids? Consider extragalactic anomalies documented in the lore. The Tyranid hive fleets avoid specific regions of the void, not because there's no biomass, but because something else is already there. Something that leaves no signals, no radiation, no trace. Just silent zones, where even the hive mind refuses to extend itself. Some observers in the Imperium call these dead currents in the warp. Others call them abyssal shadows. But the most unsettling description appears in a xenobiologist's report, classified by the Ordo Xenos. A void in the void. A presence defined only by the weakness of all other presences. The hive fleets turned away from it without hesitation. That's important. Tyranids do not hesitate. They do not retreat. They do not fear, unless something orders them to. That brings us to the concept of a predator of predators. Something that doesn't consume matter like the Tyranids do, but consumes possibility. Imagine a being, or a force, or an intelligence that feeds not on biomass, but on potential futures, a metaphysical eater, a conceptual extinction event, a being that hunts on a scale larger than physical galaxies, something that moves between universes the way sharks move between reefs. If such a predator existed, the Tyranids would not be its equal. They would be its prey. And here's the cosmic horror twist. Patterns in Tyranid fleet movement suggest the hive fleets may be acting as a distraction, a lure, a shield. Something is pushing in behind them, and everything fleeing ahead of that force, Zoats, minor Xenos, shattered fleets, even warp entities, is being funneled into our galaxy. What if the Milky Way is not just their next feeding ground, but their last refuge? We see hints everywhere. The Tyranids always arrive in waves: Kraken, Leviathan, Gorgon, Hydra, but no two waves ever come from the exact same direction. It's almost as if something behind them prevents a unified approach, something that forces them to fracture their entry points. Some areas of extragalactic space remain consistently avoided. Imagine you are running from a super predator that hunts by sensing the density of life. You wouldn't travel with one giant swarm, you'd split into thousands. That reduces the chance the predator will detect you. You're not strategizing for conquest. You're strategizing for survival. The hive fleet's fragmentation could be their last-ditch tactic to confuse something hunting them through the void. Now combine this with rogue trader accounts describing ruined star systems outside the galaxy systems, where every planet is missing, every star partially collapsed, and the warp is perfectly calm, too calm, suspiciously calm. That's not Tyranid behavior. Tyranids leave ecological scars, lingering biosignatures, pheromone trails, spore clouds, but these regions contain nothing. Perfect silence. The kind of silence you only get when nothing natural or unnatural remains. The Tyranids consume life. But this thing, it consumes existence. And the truly horrifying detail? These void locations match the trajectories of vanished Zoat migratory routes. It's as if the Zoats and countless unknown species tried to escape this horror, fleeing ahead of it, only to be caught, erased, unmade. This aligns with a terrifying hypothesis. The Tyranids are not the beginning of a galactic threat, but the tail end of one. The refugees, the survivors, the stragglers. And the pursuer, the thing that hunts them, is still moving through the dark, slowly, inevitably making its way toward the Milky Way. Some xenologists speculate that this entity is non-physical, warp-based, a blind spot in the immaterium, a predatory idea, an unnameable force the old ones concealed with technologies we no longer understand. Maybe the Blackstone fortresses weren't weapons against the Necrons, but locks designed to hold something out. But the locks are broken now. The Necrons dismantled them. The warp storms have reshaped. The galaxy is more vulnerable than it's been in millions of years, and into that vulnerability come the Tyranids not as conquerors, but as prey seeking shelter. Think about the Hive Mind's behavior around the Tyranid shadow in the warp. The shadow suppresses other psychic signals, but also distorts its own. It creates smoke screens of psychic static. It hides its location. It is acting like something that knows it is being tracked. This gives rise to a chilling interpretation. The shadow in the warp is not offensive. It's defensive camouflage, a way to make the Tyranids harder to scent by whatever hunts them. Everything we interpreted as aggression may actually be a disguise. If they devour life, they create more noise, more psychic energy, more shadows, making it harder for the predator to locate their true center. It's a misdirection, an attempt to drown themselves in the psychic static of a galaxy teeming with life. They aren't here to consume for power, they're consuming to hide. And then we have the oldest clue of all, the existence of the old hunger, a half-mythic concept referenced by multiple extinct civilizations. A being described as the eraser, the final silence, the unmaker that hunts the swarm, the Eldar, the Krork. Even fragments of Necron memory shards mention it indirectly, always unnamed, always avoided, always spoken of with dread. One shard in particular describes tides of devouring life, fleeing the emptiness behind them. The Necrons did not fear the Tyranids. They pitied them. If the Necrons pitied the Tyranids, then the thing following them is beyond horrifying. Picture this: a predator that hunts across galactic scales, incapable of being interacted with, unaffected by physical laws, and possessing an understanding of living matter so perfect that even the ultimate adaptive species is nothing more than a snack to it. This is the shadow beyond the shadow. The darkness deeper than the shadow in the warp. The unknown apex predator. The true terror of extragalactic space. And if the Tyranids are any indication, it is coming. But here is the final twist. We assume the Tyranids are running away from this thing. But what if, on some level, they're also running ahead of it, creating a path of destruction through the galaxy as a warning? Or worse, as a preparation? Perhaps they aren't hiding from this super predator. Perhaps they're clearing the table, consuming all life, so that when the true horror arrives, it cannot feed on anything except them. A final confrontation. Predator versus predator. And our galaxy is just the battlefield. The Milky Way may not be the destination, it's just the last place left. And the Tyranids are not the protagonists of their story. They're the last chapter of a cosmic extinction event written in teeth, biomass, and bone. What hunts them is older, hungrier, and inevitable. And one day, when the Tyranids stop running, when they stop devouring, when they stop hiding, we will finally see what's been stalking them across the void since before our galaxy was even born. When that happens, the question will no longer be, why did the Tyranids come here? It will be, what followed them? Some believe the first signs of this greater predator are already here. Strange void pulses detected at the edge of the segmentum pacificus. Astropathic screams describing a presence that doesn't touch the warp, but erases it. Fleets vanishing without a single spore trace. Even the Hive Mind showing moments of hesitation, like an animal catching the scent of a hunter it hoped it had outrun. If the Tyranids are the warning sirens, then these anomalies are the footsteps. And although the Imperium thinks it can survive the Hive fleets with adamantium walls, exterminatus protocols, and faith in the Emperor, none of that will matter when the thing chasing the Tyranids finally arrives. Because that thing does not want slaves, or territory, or energy, it wants finality. Perhaps the scariest thought is this: somewhere deep in the cold void, the Tyranids still remember what it feels like to be hunted. And every world they devour, every species they silence, every star system they strip clean, is just another desperate attempt to buy a little more time. The real horror is not that the Tyranids are coming. The real horror is that something far worse believes they are worth chasing.